We are very fortunate, I think, to have Roger with us because he brings with him a wide range of expertise and experience. He started his life as a primary school teacher and then became a deputy head before moving into initial teacher education at the University of Greenwich, where he has been based ever since. He is currently program leader for the school-based primary PGCE, so he's very much immersed in the world of teacher education. But in addition to that, he is an associate professor of primary education at the university, which says a great deal about the academic expertise that he invests in his work, and it also says a great deal, I think, about his range of publications that he has been responsible for, a number of books, numerous papers, and indeed some of you may have already come across some of his work. I have to say one of the most interesting and illuminating books that I've read of yours, Roger, was the really useful drama book, which was published in 2017, full of great ideas to take into the classroom. And it's one that I continue to recommend to a number of prospective primary teachers over the years. He is an associate professor of primary education, as I've said, but in addition, he is has been president of the United Kingdom Literacy Association between 2021 and 2023, and I think that says a great deal about the respect with which he is held by the profession nationally.
Brilliant to be here and brilliant to be with students as well, PGCE students, BA students as well as colleagues from school and fellow colleagues from NAPE as well. We're going to be delving into reading for pleasure and thinking about the importance of it. Hopefully, over our time together, we're going to define what it is. So that it's a term which is used a lot. You would have heard it within school, you use it within school, and we're going to try and work out what is it. We're going to look at what the benefits of RFP are. So we're going to think about why should we make it a priority within our teaching. We're then going to get a bit depressed. I'm sorry about that. We're going to look at the current state of RFP within schools. But then we're going to pick things up again because the power is in your hands. You are all in school. You're going into school. PGCEs, I think, start the block placement next week. Is that right? Yeah. So you are there. You can make a change on Monday, which is absolutely fantastic. Everything you've heard just now about sort of like the state of education and the way in which children feel about education, it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. You are going into school every day. When you've got your jobs as well, you can make that change. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the time that we've got. I'm drawing on a range of work. So drawing on my own work at the University of Greenwich, drawing on my work with the Open University and Reading for Pleasure as well. Also work with UKLA, and then I co-lead the Reading for Pleasure Quality Mark with Professor Teresa Kremin from the Open University. And then a range of texts. The key text is this one here. So this is the key text around RFP. So this is Teresa's work from the Open University and her colleagues, and it's the Teachers as Readers research, and that's really underpins so much of what I'll be talking about. The more up-to-date one is Reading Teachers. So if you want to think about your own identity as a reading teacher, that's a fantastic book, written each chapter by an academic and also teachers from school as well. So you're really hearing about what teachers are doing within their schools. My book, Inspiring Primary Learners, and then also data, a few bits of data as well that we're going to pick up on as well. But before that, thought I'll start with a story. Does anyone know this one? Some of you might. If you do, then there'll be something you're waiting for. within this story. It's by Jean Willis, illustrated by Tony Ross, and it's tadpole something. Don't Google it, don't Google it. Talk to someone around you. What could the title of this story be? Not what it is, what could it be? Tadpoles, what? Have a chat with people around you. It's called Tadpole's Promise by Jean Willis and Tony Ross. Those of you who didn't know the story, I would argue, felt something. You felt something at that point where the murder took place, where that event took place. And isn't that what we're trying to do? Isn't that what we're trying to do with reading? We want our children to see that this black print on the white background makes us feel something. It moves us in some way. It moves us, it makes us think about emotions. If our young people just see this black print on the white background about decoding, about all I'm doing is barking at print, using texts that have no meaning, have no emotion, have nothing about them, then why would I want to read? Why do I want to pick up a book? Because reading is hard. It's hard to do. So if I pick up a book and it's really dull and it's got no emotion within it, why do I keep on doing it? So finding texts that have twists, have turns with them. I bet if you read that to a child, you've got to pick the right class and everything else. You read that and then you say, well, I've got other books by Jean Willis. Anyone want to borrow this one? And they go, yeah. Let's start to read those. And they'll be expecting something. This is wonderful as well. Misery Moo by Jean Willis and Tony Ross. Because reading for pleasure is the single most important indicator of a child's future success. In a sense, we could all go home now. Please don't. But we could all go home now. This is it. That's it. Reading for pleasure, the single most important indicator of a child's future success. It's important business. It's not something as practitioners, as teachers, that we can just let pass. We need to take this seriously. But what is it? What is reading for pleasure? There's lots of different terms being used, and I'll come on to that in a sec. Before I get to that, could you take a moment? You're teaching reading. Those of you PGCE students and BA students, you've been in school a lot, and you do this thing called teaching reading all the time. What is it? What is it? Imagine there's a new dictionary being made, going to be published, a new educational one. They want the term reading to be defined. They've come to the most brilliant university just here, and they want the most wonderful students to define it because you're in school working with children. Could you just, with someone else, with 20 words maximum, could you see whether you can define what is reading? Fantastic, really, really good. Because there we're thinking about the effective parts of reading. This slide comes from my colleagues at the Open University. So this comes from Teresa Kremin's work. And I think it really helps because it's quite hard sometimes to put our finger on what reading is. How do we define it? What sort of route do we go down? That your feedback there was more around the effective processes, which is brilliant. Because sometimes that's the one that gets knocked off the side, if you see what I mean. And what Teresa talks about here is we've got three different aspects. We've got the effective processes. That's about our motivation to read. That's our volition to read. It's around the being confident and my identity as a reader. We've got the reading behaviours. So thinking about the extent to which I read, if I understand the way in which books work as well, and then I'm talking about the reading as well. And then we've got the cognitive processes. So that's the technical skills and the comprehension as well. Now, within your placements and within your schools, you're thinking about possibly which one of those schools possibly focus on more. Lots of schools, don't they? They focus on that skills-based approach. So we're thinking about what skills do our young people need in order to read, and then we take it from that cognitive aspect there. There's that, I'll come on to it in a bit as well, where we think that the skill comes first, and hopefully children will then get hooked in some way, and we'll explore that a bit. So we've got those three areas there, and all I'd ask for you within your placements and within your schools is just to make sure there's a balance there. Make sure you have a balance of, when you're thinking about reading, about the cognitive, about the affective and the behaviour aspects of reading. And there's lots of different terms you'll hear about reading for pleasure. We've got free reading, we've got recreational reading, voluntary reading, playful reading, independent reading, a love of reading, volitional reading as well. So there's lots and lots of different terms. But what we're talking about is all of those. Reading for pleasure, which is reading that we do of our own free will, anticipating the satisfaction we will get from the act of reading. That's a definition that we'll be working with. And we want children to get the habit of reading. We want them to feel that they want to read. Because if we do that, then we get motivated readers. And what the research shows us is there's so many benefits of motivated readers. There's a paper that just came out last week by Curry et al. And a fascinating one about the social and emotional impact of reading fiction. So if you're interested in this, I can send this, but also if you Google that, Curry et al. 2026, a fascinating paper where you can just think, okay, if I'm getting my children to read fiction and they're exploring that, the benefits of it. But the sorts of things, a motivated reader will spend more time reading. They have an enriched comprehension. They've got better self-competence and confidence. They've got a wider knowledge of the world. They've got reader-to-reader relationships. They're able to talk about texts with other children and also their teachers as well. They've got a wider range of vocab that they will draw on. They're motivated not only in reading, but across the curriculum as well. A wide vocab that they use within their speaking and their writing. They're talking about text and possibly, well, for me, one of the most important, a higher mental well-being as well. So that's what the research shows. So all of those, we can reference each of those of what the research shows is a motivated reader. So we want that within our schools. We want our children to be like that. And this is a more recent piece, Godbull et al. 2025. You can see there the power of RFP. Some of the interesting ones for me, imagination. That's part of my work as well. Absolutely fantastic. Those creative minds. Think about the possible, as Kieran Egan would say, rather than the actual. To what extent are we encouraging, as Anna Kraft says, possibility space? We're thinking about possibility thinking. That's the imagination. Reduced screen time, they found as well, which we could debate that one as well. So there's lots of research showing the importance of it. Okay, this is a bit, we might get a bit depressed, I apologise, but we will pick it up again. However, the latest data, you probably know this because we're in the National Year of Reading. The government are taking this agenda seriously. And why is that? Well, we're in the lowest point in 20 years of our young people saying that they choose to read for pleasure. Only 1/3 of young people say that they choose to read for pleasure. And the biggest drop, you might be surprised, is among primary children. So the biggest drop is in the age group where I would argue our primary schools should be full of art and music and laughter and dance and enjoyment and creativity and imagination and reading and text. So why have we dropped? Why is primary the biggest drop? You can see just here, start 2025. 1/3 of young people saying, yeah, I choose to read for pleasure. This is why it's serious. I spoke about the benefits. Okay, I want those benefits. PGCE students, BA students, you're going into school. You want your children to be a motivated reader, but the state of our primary education, our education, because it goes up to 18, is that we haven't got that. There's across gender, age group, and free school meals as well. So you can see our boys and girls aged 5 to 8, a better picture. There's then a drop as they go into Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, just there as well. You can see that against the age groups and also free school meals. Just wondering whether this resonates with you within your schools, if you're a teacher, within your placements, for those of you who are students. Just take a moment just to talk to someone about, does that data reflect what you see within your schools? So I hope that some of you are saying, no, that doesn't reflect the schools that I'm in, and that is absolutely fantastic. If you're in a school and if your pedagogy, i.e. the way in which you teach, is going against what the trend is here, then that's really powerful. And you've got to stand firm with that, and that is absolutely fantastic. For some of you, you might be saying, oh, actually, well, yeah, it does a bit. You know, the children who I work with, it's really hard to motivate them to read. They don't seem to want to read. And they might be, you know, some of those, that 30% of young people who are saying, actually, the 2/3 who are saying, I don't choose to read. So why is that? What are the reasons for it? Well, we can think about the way in which we teach, your pedagogy, the way in which you decide to teach within your classroom is based on so many things. So we're not working in isolation. When you step into a classroom, you're not in isolation. So as I'm here, I'm not in isolation. The way in which I teach, the themes that I use is based on a range of different pedagogical routes. And that's the same for you. You're working within what I term as a contested space of education. So you're in education, but it's a contested space. You've got different pressures on you. You've got things like, as was talked about earlier, you've got things like the SATs. So in primary, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, you've got the tests that are taking place. Well, as a teacher, you're working within that. That's part of your role. You want your children to do the best they can when they get to the Key Stage 2 SAT. So that's going to influence the way in which you teach. We've got the historic influences as well. We can go way back to the 1960s if we want to look at the way in which talk has been used within our classrooms and the way in which we start to censor the way in which our young people talk. I could do another lecture on that, but I won't right now. But we sort of censor the way in which children talk. We sort of say to them, there's one way of talking, which is the right way. If we talk about where that's come from, then we've got white, middle class ideologies around that. And what are we saying to other children? I don't talk like that. Well, your talk's not as valued. But we won't go into that right now. But we've got historical influences. We've got the influence of Nick Gibb. We've got the influence of Michael Gove, what they did to education. Some of you might think, fantastic, wonderful. But they've moulded education in a certain way within our country. And you are within that. You're within that contested space. We've got the resources, we've got finance, that you might think, oh, fantastic, I want to get these books, I want to do that. And the school says, well, sorry, we haven't got the finance to do that. So we're working within this contested space, and that's where our reading pedagogies, the way in which we teach children to read, comes from. Teresa Kremen said this at the Department for Education Select Committee, and she said, schools are brilliant at teaching children to read. They're sometimes not as good as supporting children to become readers. And that's really stuck with me. We teach children to read, but are we helping children to become readers? And that's shown within here. So this is from this book, which I talked about at the start, Building Communities of Engaged Readers. And we've got reading instruction about the skill and reading instruction, reading for pleasure, aligned to the will. And you can see the sorts of things. It's not as stark as this. It's not either or. You're not either a skill-based teacher or a will-based teacher. There's a continuum here, and it will change depending on what year group you teach and all sorts of things. But what we think here is, if the skill comes first, if that's what you focus on first, and if children are in a sense, being put off reading because they don't feel anything about it, it's hard work. We would argue that the will influences the skill. So get the motivation, get the enjoyment about reading, get the fun, get the laughter of reading. I then want that. So I've got the will. I want it. I'm going to get there. I really want to practice. And then when you've got your decodable phonics book going home, that's fine. Because I've also got I say ooh, you say ah in my book bag as well, which I love. It's one, Mum, Dad, look, give it a go as well. Oh, look, you said that. So you've got that sort of text as well as your decodable. So I would argue that we have the will of reading. Let's focus on that. And then we have the skill, but we're getting children immersed in the reading that they do. The young people surveyed said, yeah, I would read more if I had some of this. If the reading material reflected me. If it was, I really like songs, I like lyrics. So where's that within my reading? I want books that are easy to access. I don't want to have to traipse through lots of hoops to go and get my books. I need easy access. I want them to look great. I want my books to look great as well. So there's a range of things that our young people said. For example, The Proudest Blue. Absolutely fantastic. I had this on my desk with my year 3 BA students. And one of my students went and she just sat down and she just looked at this book and she read it. And then she said to me, Roger, I've never seen a book with a character that looks like me. She was 22, 23. That's disgraceful. That's absolutely disgraceful. How has she felt growing up where all the books are about white boys, possibly, that were being read to her? Why hasn't she seen a book that looks like her? Or I Am Every Good Thing, about a black boy who's been stereotyped because black boys are at times. They're told, oh, you're naughty, you're lively. And this is a black boy saying, no, I am every good thing. And so a boy who then thinks, oh, actually, this is me. This is my identity. So having texts that children see themselves and hear themselves within the books. And the research from the Open University picks on these areas here, where it says what you can do within school, and you can make a change straight away. If we focus on some of these areas, you will be focusing on RFP and that RFP pedagogy. So we're going to start with knowledge of children's books. Really key to our work within the primary classroom. What the research tells us is that if we have a really good knowledge and understanding of children's books, then we will have enthusiastic, authentic readers. We will be working with our children. We'll be able to recommend books for our children. We'll be able, as a teacher, to explain and justify the book choice that we have. For example, if you're a teacher in the classroom, you're reading that book, can you explain and justify why? Or have you just picked any book up off the shelf? We select rich texts that deepen understanding. So as a teacher, as a student going into school, what books are you going to read to your children and why? Just make sure that is always in your mind. Why am I reading this book with my children? What Teresa talks about, when we widen our knowledge and pleasure in children's readings, books and other texts, and become more aware of their own and children's reading practices, they begin to see reading differently. They can then more effectively build an RFP pedagogy and strong communities of readers within and beyond school. And again, the data for this is concerning. So back in 2009, the Teachers and Readers Research surveyed 1,200 teachers, and they were asked to name 6 authors of whose work they value. So that was really important. Not just 6 who come to your mind, but 6 authors whose work you value, and then picture fiction and poets as well. Only 46% of teachers could name 6 children's authors. You're thinking, crikey. So only half of the profession at that time could name 6 children's authors. Only 10 of them could name 6 picture fiction creators, such as the ones I've got up here. 24%, so a quarter of those teachers couldn't name any. Only 10% could name 6 poets, and 22% couldn't name 1. You might say, but that's 2009, that's ages ago. Unfortunately, the picture hasn't changed much. So we look at this is 2009. These are the authors that those teachers named. And there's an argument here, are we Dahl dependent? So is it Roald Dahl that we bring out each year? And we come up to 2022, you can see Roald Dahl is still there. So this is the contrast, 2009 just here, 2022, and you can see the sorts of authors. The reflection of this is that it's a canon of celebrity authors which are there. Again, I won't get into why I wouldn't read Roald Dahl to children within a school that I'm in, personally, and you can have your own opinion on that as well. If you look at his history, some of the things that he's said, I wouldn't be encouraging his use of his text within a school. Lovely writing, some of the stuff, wonderful, but him as a person, I don't want that personally. And again, I'm happy to talk at break time about that as well. But we've got Roald Dahl there, we've got David Walliams over there as well, J.K. Rowling and everything else. What we haven't got is a great diverse nature of children's books. So which genres do you know? Which ones do you know, do you use? Could you name as well? So we've got a range up there, got fiction, picture fiction, non-fiction, verse novels, absolutely fantastic. If you're in year 6, if PGCEs, if you're going into a year 6 class, Matt Goodfellow, the final year, absolutely fantastic. A verse novel, absolutely brilliant. Children will hear their voice within there as well. Graphic novels, brilliant. If you know those, they're like the cartoon sort of sense. There was research done saying the language within those is sometimes more challenging than in a normal novel. That's not the right way of saying it. But you see, and poetry as well. Are we reading poems to our children on a daily basis? So there might be some texts up there that you know more than others. We can then think about themes. What sorts of themes do you make sure are within your primary classroom? Do you have LGBTQ plus texts within your classroom? Do you have those for our young people? What gender-based books do you have? Are you reading books where the main character is always a boy? Or are you conscious that you're making sure I've got a range here? I'm reading texts where there's strong female characters within here. Not the boy always saving the girl. What's that saying to our young people? What about reflecting realities? The CLPE do work every year and they show that the percentage of books published is really low in ones that reflect the global majority. So are you making sure that your children can see themselves reflected in the books? Books around empathy. Have we got a range of books where children are entering into different feelings, different emotional states that they can see through the text as well? The Gypsy Roma traveller groups as well, the communities there. Do we have books where those children can see themselves? If you haven't got GRT communities within your school, doesn't mean we don't have those books, because we need to know about them. We need to know about their way of life. And books around refugees as well. This is in the news a lot, isn't it? Especially now as well with the local elections. Don't get political. But we need to help our children see what the truth is as well. There's a wonderful book, if you don't know, The Island by Armin Grida. Please grab that afterwards and have a look. Really, really powerful text around refugees and migration. So there might be some there that you're thinking, actually, I'm not so sure about those. But you can do things within your classroom. You could, from Monday for the PGCE students, you could champion and author. You can think, I'm actually going to take the author Jean Willis, for example. Maybe you like that book. You think, actually, I'm going to look at some more of those. And if there's a library in the university here, having a look more, see if they've got some. And that's going to be your author that you champion. You might take a poet and think, actually, Karl Nova, I'm going to read his poems, I'm going to bring his poetry into my classroom. I'm going to make sure I've got diverse texts. I'm going to have comics, magazines. I'm going to shadow the book awards with my children, the UKLA book awards, for example. You might want to shadow those with your children. There's a range of websites to help you as well. The top one is wonderful, Matt Tobin's high quality picture books. That's a Padlet. I assume these slides can be sent out or something, then you can just click on there. A wonderful Padlet. So how are you developing your knowledge and understanding of children's texts? So I'm just going to take a pause and there's some questions for you to think about. So at the moment, how confident are you in your knowledge of children's books and what is shaping that? Where are the gaps in your understanding and why do those gaps exist? And during your placement, how could you notice and learn from how experienced teachers recommend texts? So pick 1, 2 or 3 of the questions there and then try and think of an action. What could you do? So from whatever your answers to those are, what action could you take? Just have a talk with people around you. Taking an action point, think about one thing that you can do because you are in charge of this. You are powerful within this. I'm going to do one other aspect. And we're thinking about, as a teacher, I need to have really good knowledge and understanding of children's books. So I need an action point there. So that's what I'd encourage you to do. The other thing we need to do is have a really good knowledge and understanding of our children in the classroom. So we've got to know our children as readers. Who are they? We're not just, as I said before, we're not just teaching children to read, we're supporting them to become a reader. To do that, I need to know them. So if I do that, I'm able to recognize the value the reading, know the value that the reading the children do at home. That has a value to it as well. I need to know that. I'm able to broaden the definitions of reading to represent the children's practices. I can offer a more diverse range of texts because I know the children in my class and I'm thinking about their reading identity. The difference of this, if I know the children, take this example, for example. So you've got Billy in your class and he comes up to you and he says, Miss or Sir, I don't like reading, it's boring. And you say to Billy, okay, Billy, choose a book from Blue Box. There's some brilliant books in there. And Billy goes along. There probably are some brilliant books. And he looks through and he grabs one out and he goes and sits down and he does that thing where he opens a book and it's in front of his face and he's not doing anything with it. Or classroom 2, Billy comes up and goes, I don't like reading, it's boring. And you say to him, Billy, do you know, last night I was reading Ghost Boys. I found it fascinating. It was really, really, and I think it's going to really resonate with you. Look at the way the chapters are. It's split with alive and other chapters which are dead. And I think when you get to the second section, it's going to really hit you. Have a look at that and let's chat tomorrow. What a difference. You know Billy. Billy's a black boy within your classroom. He's faced some racism and some comments from other children. That's what this book is about. And he takes that home and he reads it and he goes, that's me. That's how I feel. And you've connected. You've got reader to reader relationships. So it could be Ghost Boys. It could be someone else who likes suspense stories and you tell them to read Water Tower by Gary Crew. Gary Crew, a wonderful author. Or it might be a child who likes comic story, funny stories. And Jim by Mini Grey. Have a look at that one. It's got some controversy there. So you want a book which is controversial as well, then have a look at Jim. And you're suggesting these books because you know the children. And it goes back to the first point as well. You need to know the books. It's not just pick a book from Blue Box. It's, I think you will like this. That then means that we develop those reading relationships with our children within the classroom. Strategies that you can do. You might want to do reading rivers with your children. There's an example here where your children draw a river, a meandering river, and they start to note on there the reading that they can remember from their earliest age to where they are now. They can put pictures on, they can write on it, whatever else, and that will give you an insight to the sorts of things that they enjoy. Home reading celebrations, celebrate what your children read at home, find out what they read at home, do curious observations. By that I mean watch what your children do when they go to the reading area. What sorts of things they pick up, how long do they spend in there? Do they just sort books and grab anything, or are they going to a certain area, and what changes can you make? 24-hour reads. Look at what your children read across a whole day and so show them that reading is so much more than this as well. We're reading all the time. Get your children to research reading as well. Find out what sorts of books as a class they might want to read. There's brilliant surveys on the Open University website as well. And do battle of the book. Children who are able to talk about the book that they think is fantastic and should be in the classroom. So, have a little talk. On placement, how could you actually find out about what children read beyond school? Which children are easiest to see as readers within your classroom and who are less visible? And what counts as reading in the classrooms that you've seen? And then one action point. What could you take from that? I'll just give you 2 minutes and then we'll close off. So we've looked at 2 areas there, possibly some of the most important from what the research talks about. As you go into your schools, have a really good knowledge of children's books. Make that your aim. You can't know everything. It's published on an ongoing basis, but you'll find an author that you love. You'll find a poet that you resonate with. Make it your responsibility. Make it your action point. If reading for pleasure is the single most important indicator of a child's future success, then it's got to be something that we do. It can't be left as, oh, we'll just get to that at some point. From now, this afternoon, tomorrow, whatever. Get an author. Have someone that you're going into school saying, this is the author I'm going to champion. Make it someone who the children don't know. They will get Julia Donaldson, they will get Anne Fine, they will get Michael Morpurgo. Fantastic authors. They will get that as a diet going through the school. Who are you going to champion? And then as you go into placement, how are you going to get to know the children? So PGCEs from Monday. How are you going to get to know them as readers? Surveys on the Open University site you could use. Talk to them. Find out about them. And then what changes do you make? What do you then actually action as a result of knowing the diversity of your class, the interests of your class? And you can do that partly by reading aloud. My third thing I'd say to you, please, 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 read aloud to your children every day. Please. Read aloud to them every day for pleasure. Comprehension, brilliant. It's got its place. We're going to read, we're going to dissect this text, we're going to look, I'm going to ask you a range of questions. Read aloud for pleasure. Pleasure doesn't mean happy fairies dancing around. I don't mean that. Pleasure can mean this is hard. If I read that, we'd probably cry together. So it's not pleasure as in woohoo, it's pleasure actually, this is feelings, this is doing something to me. So read aloud to your children every day for pleasure. They then get to hear text. They get hear text that possibly they couldn't access themselves. They start to hear themselves within the text as well and see themselves. Finding ways to engage our young people in reading may be one of the most effective ways to leverage social change. I just want to leave you with the importance of it. So being motivated to read will impact, the research shows it does impact on the academic outcomes of your young people. It impacts on the social and emotional well-being. It impacts on their understanding of the world. It enriches their imaginations. It develops their comprehension and also their vocabulary as well. So please take reading for pleasure seriously. Have fun with your children within the class. Get to know books, get to know your children, and read aloud to your children every day. Colleagues, thank you so much.